Terrifier 3, what can I say? A guy gets a chainsaw rammed up his arse. Do you know that slang? You know, his back passage. His rear entrance, his ring of power if you will. Damn it, YouTube censorship, what am I even allowed to say on here? Anyway, the violence could scarcely be more gratuitous in this film and I'm still not terrified. It's very gory, grotesque, disturbing maybe, the practical effects really are good, but I remain unterrified. And once again, I feel the need to stress if you don't like body horror and gore, if you didn't like the Saw movies, frankly don't watch any of the Terrifier films. Because in this one, a guy in a Santa outfit has his limbs and face frozen with liquid nitrogen and then smashed with a hammer. I mean, it's very realistic looking in some ways, and liquid nitrogen wouldn't work that fast in reality, and it looks like they're using dry ice, not a liquid, but fine. It's all very nasty. A woman gets force-fed live rats in this film. It's like a 2-hour movie made by the guy who thinks up the fatalities for Mortal Kombat, and then somebody tried to think up a thin plot to tie them all together. And I'm not sure it's art, if you'll accept the pun. Some of the acting is frankly diabolical and edging towards Troll 2 bad.
They're eating her! And then they're going to eat me! Oh my god!
Help me!
Surprisingly, it turns out the ex-wrestler Chris Jericho, yeah, he maybe hasn't got the acting range of a Charles Dance. He's not exactly Royal Shakespeare Company material, and the movie for me is probably the best of the series so far. It still has some story problems that I'll get into later, but overall the writing holds together better than in Terrifier 2. And this one, much like the last one, also borrows a lot of things from classic horror movies. This time, The Shining. The film is filled with cameos and horror references, and Clint Howard's in it, and I think they may have paid him by the minute from how long he's on screen. There's a cameo from Tom Savini, a man famed for his special effects work, and this one gave me mixed feelings again, because I'm left respecting Damien Leone, the writer-director, quite a lot, because he has a consistent habit of finding people's sacred cows and then turning them into burger meat. Normally slasher films tend to be harder on men than women, and never go near kids, and neither of these is the case with Terrifier 3. And I like that the director tries so hard to deliver what his audience is clearly looking for. He started as a guy with a passion for special effects, and it frankly shows. This all started with a compilation movie called All Hallows Eve, a story about an extremely violent clown called Art, and it's now been made into a 4-movie series. From the box office, there's clearly a market for what he's making, and there's clearly a lot of money to be made by making this year's most popular scary Halloween movie. And this movie also drags in Christmas as a theme. It's almost impressive how cynical it is in trying to create mass appeal. I know in my reviews of the first 2 films I was unhappy about this series running back to horror tropes and cliches, but this film does it again, and this time it may actually be a good thing in places. Because in the first 2 films, the victims of Art the Clown really did precious little to deserve what they got, and in this one some of the characters were frankly really asking for it. One girl was obsessed with Art the Clown and wanted to look into his eyes more than anything, and well, he made her wish come true and brought a chainsaw along with him, and that is as much of a trope of slasher horror as The Last Girl is. You'd have a group of teens, like in Friday the 13th, and one by one, they'd all get done in by the maniac until there's normally one girl left to beat the baddie. The movies exhibited a certain underlying morality. The misbehaving teens would all get done in, leaving the usually pure final girl, and the nasty fates the teens got would be a sort of karmic punishment. They'd be the ones who smoke pot, the couple who sneak off together for some romantic time, the black dude. Kind of messed up the black dude always gets thrown in like his sin was to be egregiously black. In Terrifier 2, all the talk was about the very violent bedroom scene and the girl who got done in her own bed, but nobody that I've ever seen even mentions the black dude in the Halloween store who frankly got it nearly as bad. I like innovation, but some things are tropes for a reason, and seeing horrible things happen to these characters just works better for me if they've done something to deserve it. If they've done anything to deserve it. If not, it just feels cruel. Seeing a young woman get hit is viewed negatively by most of the audience, until maybe she's a bully being cruel to another girl. Is comic justice a cliche in this kind of film? Maybe, but it may be one like a car having an engine is a cliche. It may be predictable, but the engine is kind of helpful if you want the car to go anywhere. I get so fed up with many of the cliches that part of me has kind of wanted to make a slasher movie myself, like a Jason style Friday the 13th Part 2, but the slasher is being played by Sydney Sweeney, because slashers in these things are almost universally men. Ugly men, and the plot could maybe involve a bus full of cheerleaders being driven by an older black guy. I'm thinking ideally Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters. They get attacked and done in, and the sole survivor is Ernie Hudson, who it turns out was a war vet and was secretly lethal. I feel like doing something that goes against many of the tropes of the genre that have long ago become boring. I'll be getting into spoilers now. The movie opens up, and once again with a scene of extreme violence. It's a family on Christmas Eve in their house, but this film does a better job of building them up as characters than previous entries in the series have. The young daughter is excited because she thinks she can hear Santa on the roof, but it's actually Art the murder clown in a Santa outfit, who gets into the house and does in everyone, including the children, with an axe. And somehow in the gap between films, he's managed to reattach his previously detached head. The story is once again quite difficult to believe, because in one scene we're told that Art the Clown is the most notorious serial killer since Jack the Ripper. That's an actual line in this film, and simultaneously the audience is expected to believe that members of the public still don't recognise him. It's kind of untenable. This is his third visit now to the same region of America, and still nobody recognises him. This is his third massacre in 6 years, and still nobody recognises Art the Clown. Nobody recognises the very unsubtle murder clown, and still nobody is armed either. In small town America, the clown is the only one who's armed. And that's another departure from slasher horror tropes, because Freddy had his glove covered in blades, and Jason Voorhees had his machete, Michael Myers had whatever was around. Art the Clown, he prepares. He's creative and takes this very seriously, and comes up tooled like a cross between a mad scientist and a Green Beret. Meanwhile, Sienna, the hero of the last film, has been in an asylum for some time, following her last encounter with the murder clown in Terrifier 2, and her brother with the really weird neck has gone off to university. He may be the first kid I've ever seen who had a growth spurt, and it was entirely centred around his neck. Sienna is leaving hospital and going to stay with relatives after her mother got done in the last film. I think it's supposed to be her uncle, aunt and their daughter, and she's still seeing visions of Art the Clown's victims. Her family are weirdly unaccepting of her behaviour. In one scene, she sees her deceased friend in a vision, looks a bit startled and zones out and mutters something, and the family act like it was a major incident, instead of, something that would probably be quite normal for someone that had been through what she'd been through. Meanwhile, Art the Clown has gone to a bar where he does in everyone inside there, freezes a Santa with liquid nitrogen, smashes his face with a hammer and steals his costume. This enables him to do maybe my favourite scene of the entire film. Art the Clown goes to a mall where he plays the role of a mall Santa handing out presents to kids, and seriously, still nobody recognises him. And nobody's freaked out. None of the mothers or parents are freaked out that their kid is now sitting on the lap of a murder clown in a town that's had multiple murder clown related massacres in the last 6 years. Finally, somebody calls security, tried to escort Art out of the building as one of the kids opens a present to the music Joy to the World, the famous Christmas carol, and the present contained an IED. The IED then goes off and takes out a room full of kids, and I like the use of juxtaposition with the music and imagery. It's once again untenable that the police are nowhere to be seen in this film. Like that mall didn't have a single security camera to record the murder clown, and somehow also no witnesses. There's a subplot of the next roommate at university and his girlfriend who has a true crime podcast and is obsessed with Art the Clown, and the idea of getting Sienna Shaw and her brother the neck on the podcast, and she badly wants to see Art the Clown right up until she finally does. When she's enjoying some time in a frat house shower with her boyfriend, the roommate, it's a communal shower where anyone could walk in, but fine. And somehow Art the murder clown just walks into the frat house and nobody stops him or is worried. They even compliment him on his costume. Nobody's even worried by the sounds of screaming and a revving chainsaw coming from the shower and toilets. Art does the couple in with a chainsaw in brutal fashion and really takes his time doing it. That, according to one interview with the writer-director, caused people in the cinema to cheer as the roommate got a revving chainsaw rammed up his ring of power. Sienna freaks out when she thinks she saw Art at the mall. Her family gives her a sleeping pill, and when she wakes up, she goes downstairs to hear her uncle and aunt talking about how she's a dangerous liability and they should smother her in her sleep. But when she goes in, it's actually Art and the girl whose face he ate in the first movie. The series is trying to justify all of this by saying that Art and the girl have been possessed by demons, and that they seek their ultimate victory by bringing more demons through into our world, by breaking Sienna, the girl fated to stop them, and making her the host for a demon. To do this, Art beats her around the head with a wood mallet. Her uncle, meanwhile, has been beheaded, crucified to a wall, and his head is now a tree topper, and all that happened off camera. Sienna gets crowned with thorns. The neck has also been done in off camera, or so we're told. We only ever see a skull in a cage full of rats. The aunt then gets live rats shoved down her throat and gets done in before Sienna gets free, gets her magic sword back, beats Art the clown, does in Eaten Face Girl, who then dissolves and her body opens up a portal to hell, and Art the clown gets away after the uncle's young daughter falls into the hell portal, and Sienna tries to lift her out by doing something unimaginably stupid. To try and help the girl out of the hell portal, she lowers down the sword for the young girl to hold onto, while Sienna tries to grip the blade. She doesn't use a chair or some of the broken wood littering the floor. No, she tries to grip a razor-sharp sword blade and use it as a lever. So that's where the movie ends. Sienna has to try and explain to the police what happened to yet another family. The young daughter fell into a hell portal, and Art the clown takes a bus while covered in blood. And seriously, still nobody recognises him. Supposedly the story will wrap up in Terrifier 4.
If you only knew the power of one, the power of two, the power of many.